Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Silver Years. My name is DK, and I'm very happy to be here. And I humbly thank you for joining me. Today, I'd like to talk about the 15-minute city trap and the brutalistic architecture that reflects it. I don't know if any of you have noticed, like I have, but wherever I look anymore, there has been a significant uptick in apartment construction over the last several years. And in spite of the economic downturn we've been told repeatedly we're in the middle of, this construction has not stopped in the least. In fact, it appears to be amping up. I tend to pay attention to these kind of development trends as they show up because of the career years I spent immersed in the realm of commercial real estate finance. And from where I sit in Southern California, I have never in all of my professional life seen so many massive apartment complexes erupt one after the other as these developments devour every empty lot as if the system is preparing for something we don't see coming. And this construction is not just limited to one city, town, or county, it's everywhere. It's all throughout California. I've heard reports it's in Las Vegas, in Phoenix. I personally saw it all over the East Coast when I was there last year. And I'm seeing that it's even reached parts of rural Montana. Speaking with others, it appears this is happening in just about every state, like there's been a systematic implementation. I can't speak to what's happening outside the US. If if you're seeing this trend in your country, please share in the comments below. And these apartment blocks, just to say, all look the same from city to city, from state to state. They all look the same. Same blueprint, same design with perhaps a little facade tweak here and there. Big, square apartment complexes that average about 4 stories high. Stack 'em and pack 'em prison blocks undoubtedly saturated in 5G waves, smart meters, and a centralized way to lock you in. The design style, if you can call it a design or a style, is called brutalist architecture. Oh, it's brutal, all right. It's brutal on my eyes and sensibilities. They've got no style, no charm, no curb appeal. And the colors? There aren't any, non existent. Apparently, along with everything else, you will have no color and enjoy it. Well, there's even a word for it, monochrome, which I interpret to mean flat and ugly. I don't know about you, but I keep having flashbacks to the awful angular designs that trended in the 1950s and 60s, some of which are still around as evidence. It was called brutalism then, and it was hideous. And it's even more hideous now as it assaults our senses once again on a mass produced scale almost 75 years later. At least in the 50s and 60s, there was some color involved, even if it was burnt orange, avocado, and marigold. Side note, but relevant, have you noticed over the last 6 or more years how all of the fast food chains have given their franchises a facelift? They've exchanged their brightly colored brands and recognizable storefronts with monochrome. Nothing stands out. Colors are bland and flat, the edges are sharp. They've all done it. And why? To match these prison block apartment buildings? Now, I wonder if part of this is to train our eyes away from color, away from beauty, and the healing effects beauty can have by removing all color and turning our world bland, colorless, and flat. Feels kind of robotic, doesn't it? You will have no color and enjoy it. Now, seeing this kind of construction boom over the last several years makes me wonder why all of these monochrome apartment complexes are being systematically built all over the country, and of course, how they're being built. The first question I have to ask myself is, who's funding these projects? Where are they getting their financing? Because that would be tied to projected occupancy, which begs the obvious question, who is occupying them? Because from where I sit, the multitude of developments that I regularly pass by appear to have a very high vacancy rate, which means I think a lot of these units are basically empty. Yet, construction has not stopped or even slowed down, and a multitude of new developments are just breaking ground. Off the top of my head, I can list three, maybe four malls alone within a 20-mile radius of me where cities have announced within the last 9 months or so that these old shopping centers will be leveled and replaced with huge multifamily apartment complexes and community live work environments. Community environments they aren't yet calling 15-minute cities or smart communities, but that's coming. Just wait. I also think downtown Disney, at Disneyland in Anaheim here, something that was built within the last 10 to 15 years is somehow a prototype and predictive programming for this smart city life it appears we're being corralled into. I've noticed too, locally at least, that the greedy and desperate city councils where these brutalist prison block apartments are emerging by the droves can only see dollar signs as they salivate over all the anticipated tax dollars they hope to funnel into their budget deficits when approving these projects. What we never hear about are the concessions these cities are making in return, what they're secretly giving up or giving away in exchange for the promise of big dollars down the road, dollars that are never enough and rarely as promised. This unsustainable scenario reminds me of what I call the Walmart approach. When Walmart wants to expand into a community, it always comes with the promise of big tax dollars. In exchange, of course, for city concessions and lots of freebies for at least the first 5 years or so. Historically, numerous communities have been financially decimated by this dance when Walmart decides to close their big box store and pull out of the community when the 5 year concession period ends and before the promised tax dollars get paid. Yet, not before it drains the community infrastructure of every available resource. These cities not only lost big bucks they couldn't afford to lose, but ended up with a big vacant building and eyesore that no one will occupy as a reminder. All this after Walmart completely collapsed the local economy during its short occupancy, a local economy that included community shops, mom and pop businesses, and local establishments that couldn't compete with the big box bully that bankrupted them as that bully absconded with the town's pot of gold. What I'm seeing with this wave of apartment block construction smacks to me of the same MO, the same modus operandi. Anyhow, there is a bigger picture here, and I think it's important that we begin to observe and ask questions in order to delve into what that larger agenda might be, because it does affect us all. This trend is fully enmeshed with housing nationwide in ways most of us may not fully see yet, and in ways we never expected, whether we realize it or not. Because in the end, we all need to live somewhere. So this issue does involve us all. The first excuse we hear repeated like a mantra by the governments and the talking heads is that we don't have enough housing. It's all about a housing shortage. Really? Do we really not have enough available housing, or is there something else going on? From my perspective, and I'm going to go out on a limb here and declare the housing shortage claim to be completely false. And I'm not saying here that in certain areas that maybe more housing would be useful. But overall, I do not feel we have a housing shortage in this country. And I could list numerous reasons to support why I think that, but I'll save it for another day. What we have is not a housing shortage, but an affordable housing shortage. Big difference. There is plenty of housing to be had all around me. It's just not affordable when adjusting for income. And because it's not affordable for the working locals and seniors, many properties sit empty, holding space for the corporate and private equity firms that are buying them up and sitting on them as a way to park their money. Vibrant neighborhoods that were once teeming with life are now half empty with blinds drawn as short term Airbnb rentals occasionally fill the gap. And the people who need homes to live in but can't afford the rising costs are disenfranchised and pushed out of the market. Now, while some cities are requiring developers to include some version of affordable housing into their prison block construction plans, it's pretty obvious that creating affordable housing is not a primary focus here. All you have to do is try to rent one of these units to realize that they are much more costly than renting elsewhere. And let me just briefly touch on some of the alternative and cheaper housing options that may have been that many have been exploring, especially over the last 6 years since 2020, when the world as we knew it forever changed. Now, this might include the van life, RV living, off grid living, sleeping in your car, and whatever else. Governments have made it a point to put up legal barriers to block or limit these options as long term and even short term solutions. One barrier might include the ban on overnight parking in public and private places where it was once allowed, Walmart's parking lot being one of these locations. Another barrier might be that sleeping in your vehicle, be it a van or car, is deemed illegal and subject to tickets and fines or towing. Another barrier might revolve around not having a permanent legal address for government use and benefit. Yet, legalities will not allow anyone to reside in an RV park for more than 6 consecutive months, depending on the park. Again, like housing in general everywhere, private equity and corporate money are buying up campgrounds and RV parks and establishing rules and regulations that are now costly and limiting. When you opt to step outside of the system in the name of affordability, the system aggressively attempts to block that move with a meter, a law or restriction, a ticket or fine, and rules and regulations. And frankly, it's time for us to create some new workarounds and solutions. Anyhow, if these prison block apartment developers are not here to address the affordable housing issue, which would also include the senior and homeless component so prevalent today, by the way, what's the hidden bigger reason behind this trend and the corporate money that drives it? Well, from what I can see, one major driving force behind what we're witnessing in our national housing markets can be clarified in the United Nations Agenda 2030 and the global push for 15-minute smart cities and confined live-work spaces. I know I've mentioned these UN agendas before, but there are still many who believe that the government is looking out for their best interests and would never allow something like these agendas to override our human rights, when nothing could be further from the truth. All governments affiliated with the United Nations are in cahoots with this agenda. And if you are unfamiliar with it, then I encourage you to do your own research and decide for yourself. And let me say, just as a reminder, like most of the things I discuss on my channel, this topic is extremely multi-layered and multifaceted, which means that it's not just one thing that makes it all so. It's many layers of things over time that has gotten us to where we are today. What I'm trying to shed light on here are simply some of the significant factors that I'm seeing play out around us right now. It seems to me that the system is and has been preparing to somehow corral the masses into these prison block apartments as a means of containment, but under the guise of convenience and community living and even economics. Don't think it's possible? Let me explain further what I'm noticing, because the plan is in full swing. If you want to corral a herd of cattle into a confined pen, you have to block off all routes of escape. One by one, you remove the detours, the outlets, and escape options as you squeeze the herd into the only path that has been made available. And that is the chute leading to the confined pen. The cows don't know what's happening until they're confined and no longer free to roam. This is some of what I see being done to remove the possibility of affordable home ownership as an option for the majority. And clearly, cost is the number one weapon being used. And it's not necessarily the cost of rising interest rates, as some might think, even though, of course, that is an issue. We can start with the obvious, like the cost of fuel, water, electricity, heating, food, clothing, not keeping up with paychecks. Whenever the government declares a shortage, the cost goes up. If you can't afford to buy gas and commute to work, then you won't be able to afford to drive more than 15 minutes to get anywhere, period. That is, if you're still able to afford a car and insure it. And if you think electric vehicles are the solution to this, you might want to rethink that one through. You might want to rethink that. And then there's the cost of insurance. I feel I really feel that this is one of the biggest factors that most don't talk about, but it is a deal breaker. It's something that everyone has to have. It's required by law because the system requires it, right? Car insurance, health insurance, homeowners insurance, renters insurance. Speaking for myself here in California, I received my car insurance renewal last year with a flat 15% increase just cuz. Just cuz. An increase I was told every policy in the state received across the board. Okay, car insurance is one thing. Homeowners insurance is another. Without homeowners insurance, you cannot get a home loan. And many insurance companies over the last 3 or 4 years have simply canceled their policies without warning and just left the state and homeowners high and dry. And when a replacement policy is finally obtained after shopping the few remaining insurance carriers left who will even offer policies, the premium for that policy, as required by the lender, may have increased 10 times in cost. And what was once $1,500 a year may now be $15,000 a year. The difference between $125 a month and $1,250 a month. We can all do the math. Then, of course, we have to look at the obscene cost of property taxes, the government's big money grab. A big corporate or private equity fund with deep pockets can usually afford to pay whatever the government wants to charge in the form of tax assessments for the inventory of properties it holds. It can fund the greedy government that protects it, while an average homeowner cannot, especially when the government has no legal limits on what it can assess or how much the bill can increase from year to year. Tax increases that are based upon an assessed value that can easily be manipulated by those who play dirty. Something the big money group, BlackRock, and how many of you have your money invested in BlackRock? You're eating at your own foundation, by the way. But something this big money group, BlackRock, was recently exposed for doing all over the country, artificially inflating values. And that can spread across a number of reasons. A tax bill alone can price the average homeowner out of ownership. Just ask the people of Montana about their unchecked property tax bills. Just ask the retired folks who now have to work a full-time job just to pay their property tax bill for a home they've lived in all of their lives. The government is draining them of their assets until there's no more left to drain. In California, Proposition 13 was put into place almost 50 years ago to limit property taxes. But the government of this state has been trying repeatedly to delete that law in every sneaky way possible for as long as I can remember. It's in the process of trying to do it again right now. I guess brutalism isn't just limited to architecture and ugly prison block apartments, right? Are there ways we can counteract some of this assault to our senses? Well, I've chosen to counteract it as best I can with beauty. I know it sounds strange, but I try to counteract it with beauty, with color, with nature, with life. Because these brutalistic designs are anti life. Humans need beauty. And what is beautiful is also healing for the soul. And beauty in all its forms is being stripped away by corporate governments with our compliance. My advice: don't go along to get along. Don't support these projects. Don't comply. Go opposite. Be aware of the agenda, but don't buy into the agenda. Don't invest in the companies that are eating at your foundation. Go opposite. When they go brutal, go beauty. And a quick reminder before I finish up here, the stories and anecdotes I share with you on this channel are here for your entertainment and consideration. Please take from them what helps you, what resonates with you, and discard the rest. And please do your own research before coming to your own conclusions. Well, my more than 15 minutes is up. But before I go, I want to leave you with a loaded question to ponder, as I like to do. What kind of brutalist multi-unit housing developments have you noticed in your area? And do you feel they meet a need or enhance your community? Please leave your comments below. I would love to hear your thoughts. So until next time, be well, choose love, and thank you. Thank you for listening. Goodbye for now.